This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Hey, Adam Murray here, one half of the NBA team here at the Place to Be Nation. This is part 4 of the Gone Fishing series. We hope you've been enjoying it. I don't need to give the premise anymore because we're already on part 4, so enjoy.
McDermott a miss.
I'll tell you, boy, Doug, he missed a lot of wide open shots.
He always has. And here's he throws that down.
Enes Kanter, what are you doing? The finisher in New York City.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
He got a head of steam up.
Welcome to the Larry Show. Woo!
And Kanter couldn't do anything except get out of the way.
Oh, Doug McDermott. You got to blame Doug on that. Enes Kanter, you got you on a poster, my man. Woo!
Adam, it's time to talk about the Chicago Bulls.
Now, Chicago, they were interesting, don't you agree? You have a classic front office versus a coach feud. Front office defeats the coach. Coach is gone. But in the end, weren't they both sort of losers?
Wait a minute. Fred Hoiberg's not gone.
The Thibodeau.
You are still... Dude, are you still hanging up on the Gar Forman, John Paxson firing Tom Thibodeau thing? Thibodeau is actively failing right now with the Minnesota Timberwolves, and we're still holding up this high mark for Thibodeau, like, oh, the moment you let him go, the team went into a free fall. There were problems with that team before that they're still paying for to this day. Okay, that's my issue.
Okay, fine. They're actively failing with Hoiberg.
Yes, they are. I will say this. Offensively, I say this, and they were 26th in points per game and 30th in field goal percentage and 27th in efficiency. But offensively, they were actually starting to become like a Fred Hoiberg team. Remember that big argument of, they don't let him do what Hoiberg did at Iowa State. Well, they actually started to take a lot of threes and play a lot faster.
It's quite simple if you get rid of everybody. Hey, we don't do what he does. Okay, bye, Jimmy Butler. We'll replace you with Levine, who doesn't play for half
until
or two-thirds
February.
of the year.
He came back in February.
Chris Dunn, who injured his face and was out for like a month. Then you get rid of Mirotic because he gets into a fight with his teammate in practice.
Yes. And then you traded him because he was unhappy because he got in a fight with his teammate in practice.
It wasn't that he was unhappy. It was just...
I think the Portis fight did have to do with the trade a little bit. I know that some people contest that and say that
the Portis fight was the reason for the trade. Ultimately, that we still can't keep both these guys on the team in the end. We have to pick one or the other. And for some reason, I think only you and I are on Team Portis.
Well, Portis is a good player,
but everybody else thinks he sucks.
Well, he's got a nasty attitude, and I think that when that doesn't translate well with the media and writers, and you know how the media likes to shape the narrative on some of these players depending on how they act towards them. Why do you think Boogie always gets a bad rap?
Well, because Boogie would get technicals and then argue with the refs for getting technicals and get more technicals.
Chris Dunn, I don't want to say that Minnesota gave up on him. That's too much. I just think that
he couldn't figure out Minnesota's system. Minnesota's system wasn't for him. Minnesota doesn't like rookies. Look at we're not talking Minnesota here, but look at our boy Tyus Jones there. He can't get 15 minutes on the court because, well, he's too young. He's not under the age of 30. So yeah, if you let Chris Dunn do something, yeah, he was good coming out of Providence. It was just he didn't fit in Minnesota. You have Levine. We knew he would score. It was just, well, does he have the explosiveness? You have Cristiano Feliciano, who
Felicio. You had a couple Italian accents.
He's even more Italian. Well, he's not Italian.
Here's the problem with a guy like Cristiano Felicio. He's one of those guys. We actually talked about Montrezl Harrell with the Clippers. Is that he's one of those guys who you try to groom and you feel like you got like a diamond in the rough, but you overpay through restricted free agency or, because you don't want anybody to match him because you want to keep him. But what happens is you wind up overpaying to keep a guy in-house when you were probably just better off letting him leave in the first place.
You were bidding against yourself for his Italian heritage, for his Italian talents.
You're betting against perceived market value when the market value is not even there yet.
I don't care if he's Brazilian. We want the Italian talent.
$8 million a year for Cristiano
For
Felicio.
4 years of just a developmental guy, it's just like, what were you thinking? Robin Lopez, yeah, he's better than anybody thinks because everybody has zero expectations of him.
And he will. We talked about Bobby Portis. Now, Robin Lopez will fight you. He's got some fight in him.
He does. He has a mean streak, and he's serviceable. He's never going to be as flashy or as he's the lesser of the brothers, but.
You just make me laugh because you're making me think that Brook Lopez is like the prettier of the two.
I meant the more talented.
Yeah, well, like the more polished, I guess you were trying to say. But
Brook has an offensive game. Robin Lopez is just a hermit who will just do the dirty work. But he was he's there and for now. And then again, let's trade Jimmy Butler. You know what? We're going to give you our first round pick with him because you're getting the better end of the deal. Hey, we need to get rid of Mirotic. You know what? Let's take an extra $12 million. We're going to show we're tanking for the long haul. We don't want to get better next year. We're going the Philly process where we just want all the draft picks possible for 4 years and hope one of them work. Like there's Denzel Valentine. You've mentioned you're not high on him at all and is sort of a wasted pick.
Yeah, I just don't like. I thought if he could be able to convey as a point forward type because of his stockiness and his size, that maybe he could have found a place in the league. But it just turned out that all Valentine can do, if he's feeling it, is he could be a good scorer. But outside of that, he's got very little value outside of maybe some getting a rebound every now and then and swooping in because of how strong he is. But I don't really see it with Valentine. He just was a scorer. Jerry Grant, I've completely given up on. I mean, I don't think he's at a backup level in the NBA.
Are you finally slowly coming around on Lauri Markkanen?
Markkanen's very good. Now, I still will. A lot of people will say, Dunn and Markkanen for Butler is actually not that bad of a deal at the end for Chicago. I still say yes because you gave up the better player at the end of the day, which is Jimmy Butler. But Markkanen he was making some nice strides playing for Chicago. A lot of people will complain that the only reason Markkanen got those minutes was because of the Mirotic injury from the fight. And then when Mirotic was traded, Markkanen had to play a lot of those minutes. And he averaged 30 minutes a game.
Yeah, and then, we talked about how, he's just a Kelly Olynyk. He's just a stretch five who will do nothing. He's Channing Frye.
But he averages 7.5 rebounds a game.
Well, by default, since he's 7 feet, yeah.
Yeah.
But, he's better, or Let me ask
you this, since they're only separated by a year in draft. Markkanen and Dunn, which one are you higher on down the road? Because these are the guys. This is the core for the next 3 or 4 years.
Markkanen has a home in this modern NBA. He always will, as long as he can shoot threes. Chris Dunn needs to have his explosiveness, and
he did show a lot of athleticism with Chicago.
We'll put it this way: Chris Dunn has a ceiling that he hasn't hit yet. Markkanen, we could sort of say, has a ceiling, but it's a serviceable ceiling for a career.
Zach LaVine did show that scoring touch that he had in Minnesota when he came back from the ACL. His explosiveness is there, obviously. He was a 2-time slam dunk contest winner and incredibly can jump out of the gym. And it didn't seem like the knee injury or knee surgery took too much away from him. It was pretty much the same player I remembered.
He was the same player, but it took longer because – players could bounce back a lot quicker these days, and he seemed to be on that old school timetable.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those. Did Chicago sort of wait too long to sort of, because he was just fresh enough? Like, what would happen if he had 10 more games, and then would his legs start to get a little tired? Or
do you think there may have been a little bit of that? They were doing that to try to
lower his value,
his value as a restricted free agent. That's what I was trying to get at. Yeah. I don't know
because I don't know.
I don't think they were that smart, to be honest.
If he's a part of their team and their future, I don't see the free agent market really being that high on a developmental guy like him. Thinking of other people who are restricted free agents, I think, with the Jabari Parkers and Julius Randles, I don't think a 2 guard who's streaky is really as high as those two, I would say. And then with, all the potential big names and then the trickle down, there's not going to be money for him because the only teams that have big money for him aren't, they're not looking to buy in on him for 4 years when they're also tanking.
My problem with LaVine is that if he departs, he has to go to a team that has a good point guard that can demand some of the defensive, not the defensive responsibilities, but the defensive attention. Because that's where LaVine, it's between the creases when he can get through the lane and get those open corner threes. That's where LaVine is dangerous. I don't know if that's like a priority for him. I think he's just trying to get the most money possible, which is fine. That's what every player wants. But I feel like if he sticks with Chicago and he plays with Dunn offensively, as a jump shooter, he's coming along. He has some good games, but he mostly has bad ones. But I think offensively, he can be sort of an equal to what LaVine can do.
Yeah, but again, this isn't a terrible destination. They are looking up as they do have talent. It's just, are they going to slowly reach this Denver situation where we have, 2 more first-round picks? We're just going to have players, no superstars, but we have people who can play. Are they just going to be the mediocre team?
They do have the Pelicans pick, which is number 22, but they also had to take on Omer Sheik to make the salaries work. And let me just say this, because this is a player option in 2019. Will Omer Sheik ever play a minute for the Chicago Bulls?
Yes.
You say yes.
They're not going to stretch him for 3 years.
Yeah, but if they can get a medical waiver.
But he was back at the end of the season. He was playing. He just got DMP CDs.
I know, but
there's no medical issue for a coach decision.
But with the Bulls, they're going to try to figure out a way. I mean, if they try to do a stretch, yes, they'd have to wait out another year to do it. That's absolutely true. You don't want to do it. You don't want to pull a Monte Ellis like the Pacers did. You don't want to stretch for 4 years.
Yeah.
That would make no sense. Okay, kind of like small, tidy stuff because the team stats are god awful. They have to basically get better at everything. They have their lottery pick is at number 7. They didn't really take a jump, which some Bulls fans were hoping for, and they didn't get it. Man, when I look at the draft, I would probably say somebody like I know there's a lot of rumors going around like Michael Porter Jr., the Mikal Bridges out of Villanova, maybe Kevin Knox from Kentucky. Like maybe somebody like that might help them. I don't really know exactly what they can go for.
Well, that's what they sort of have to is go for a boom or bust prospect. I don't think you can play it safe and just get a best available. Well, what is he? He could score you 12 a night, but he's not going to move the needle anything.
If they can get like a Jaren Jackson Jr. or find a way to trade up and get him, that would probably work out really well for him, but I don't even know if they have the room to do that. They'd have to probably give up that 22 pick to do so. Small stuff here. Tony Allen, he never played. Do you think he'll be back? I say probably not.
He was just salary fodder.
Cameron Payne, give him one more chance?
Reportedly, he's still on the roster.
Yeah, he's there. He's a restricted free agent in 2019, which he'll probably decline. Noah Vonleh is now a restricted free agent. He did play okay for them.
But that's just the people on that team, franchise seeing people on that, well, he's good, he could do it, and we're still waiting after 4 years, and he's shown really nothing to anybody. So it might just be that if you treat him like a first round pick now and give him like a first round money, 3 years, $5-6 million a year for 3 years, 2 years team option.
Yeah,
that developmental, we hope we can do something.
I definitely think they're going to pick up the team option for $1.5 million on Paul Zipser. That makes a lot of sense. Quincy Pondexter, I think he's seen his last days, unfortunately, because of his injury history. David Nwaba is interesting because he contributed very, very nicely, but he has a $1.7 million cap hold as a restricted free agent. That can easily be surpassed on an offer sheet, but would Chicago be willing to match it?
If he's cheap enough, it's...
I'm not trying to say he's going to get $10 million. What I'm trying to say is I can see him getting what the kind of contract that I wouldn't say Sean Kilpatrick signed with the Bulls, but something in the vein of help me out here, give me one of those journeymen that got a decent deal, like Langston Galloway. You think
3 years, $18 million?
Like something like that, yeah.
Because Stan Van Gundy knew what he was doing. No, it's going to be, it's well. Okay, let's just put it this way with Chicago. They are doing nothing next year, anyways. They've already told us that by taking on Omar Sheik. They're just looking to get picks for this year and next year to rebuild and hope they land another superstar. So, which is strange for a large market team. Like you never hear Chicago. Oh yeah, we're going to continue the tank for another year, but they're not going to look any better. They're just going to, sign Levine, carve out some money for Dunn if they want him, and just hope they could put a front court piece with him in the draft.
Okay. The biggest question, obviously, for them, even though it's kind of small potatoes for a tanking team, is what does Zach LaVine do in restricted free agency, and how much are you willing to dole out for Bobby Portis? I think that they're probably not going to come to an agreement, and they're just going to wait it out to see what happens.
Yeah, they'll wait it out, and they'll let the market decide him. I think the same way with LaVine, but again, that's the smart thing to do because there isn't much of a market this year. Nobody has cap room, so.
And they do have a lot of room coming up next year because they're probably going to decline on Jerry Grant, Justin Holiday, who actually played fairly well for them. He'll be done after 2019, and so will Robin Lopez come off the books. So they obviously have some cap room coming up. The funniest part is that 2018, if you don't count the team options, they're still around $96 million. They're still paying some decent coins. You could probably thank Omer Sheik's shitty contract for that.
Yep, and that's why no teams have money, because you sign people like that, and when the bench has more money than your starters do, that's never a good sign.
Yeah, well, I think also when I did that one, I think I projected the potential Mirotic cap hole, which they're obviously going to not have to use unless they're so low below the cap that they just have to keep it so that they can get to the salary floor. Because I don't see the Bulls overreaching in free agency. That's kind of what I'm trying to get at with this. Like, I don't think they're going to overpay somebody.
No, but that's what the 1 year, $20 million, contracts are for now.
Like a KCP deal. Yeah.
Yep. And that's Bulls, not much to look forward to, but that's by their design.
Another alley-oop to Davis off the glass by Rondo. Turn the lights out.
All right. Rondo making a play. Puts it upstairs. Anthony Davis does the rest. I call that help me Rondo. Help me Rondo.
Adam, it's my New Orleans Pelicans. Are you ready?
Should I just turn off my mic and just let you have at it for 10 minutes?
It's going to be close. I'm going to have a little some of my little classic Riche rattle-offs going on about my Pelicans. But no, actually, there's a lot of optimism that goes into this offseason because of the fact that they not only did they actually make the playoffs, get this, they won a playoff series.
I know.
Are you excited?
But now you have to move on from that, and how do you step up?
Well, let's just kind of cut to the chase with the top part. It was sort of a tale of two teams for a while. They did the Boogie trade back in at the All-Star break in the 2017 season. He's going into the last year of his contract. When they were doing the Twin Towers gimmick with AD and Cousins, and it was working pretty well, and they were a winning team right there in the thick of the playoffs. DeMarcus Cousins tears his Achilles, and he's out for the year. Davis steps in, along with Drew Holiday and guys like Etuan Moore, who sort of stepped in and started to put more production up in the absence of Boogie. But it was a very different team, would you say?
Yeah, they just became more of a pick and roll, and just Boogie took over, and
well, AD took over.
That's what I was so busy thinking I should be quiet and not say anything.
Yeah. Here's the thing. DeMarcus Cousins, before the injury, was playing fantastic. He had like multiple triple doubles. It wasn't like Cousins was sort of just like hamming it up. Like he was racking up. He was probably, I hate to say, this might sound like sacrilege in New Orleans, but he was playing better than Anthony Davis.
I wouldn't go that far.
25 points, 13 rebounds, 5 assists, 1.6 steals, 1.6 blocks. Also, career high in three-pointers made.
They were just playing together, and one deferred to the other.
Okay. Then they had to do a little bit of a changeover. Alvin Gentry, I don't want to call it desperation, but he was going into the last year of his deal too. So I mean, a little bit of pressure. He hadn't made the playoffs the first 2 years coaching there. Played a lot faster, made the playoffs. Then they play a Portland Trailblazer team that seemed to have their number in the regular season, and they just completely wiped them out in the playoffs, swept them. What did they do differently? Was there anything different out of the Pelicans that you saw that made you think, oh, they've really turned a corner here?
No, it was just playoff Rondo, and then Davis destroyed everybody, and the difference between the regular season was the Mirotic trade. You lose Cousins, but you get a nice stretch four for nothing.
Nikola Mirotic was in the deal where, I mean, it was a fleecing. I mean, I think you actually termed that when we talked about it before. It kind of was. Omer Sheik had to be part of the deal because it was a double-digit salary type of swap. But the fact that Chicago was even willing to take on the contract was kind of befuddling. But they were in tank mode and they were trying to stay at the cap. The cap floor, and that was just an easy excuse to do it.
They weren't, because they made the same amount of money. They just want another pick, and they figured Boogie's gone. New Orleans is going to be the lottery. We have more ping pong balls at our disposal. Then all of a sudden it backfires, and then they make the playoffs because of Mirotic, essentially, because he did really well there.
Yeah, I mean, and here's the funny part: Mirotic, after in the situation where he got injured by being punched by Bobby Portis before the season started, he was playing well for Chicago before the trade. It was just kind of that uneasiness where the organization wanted to, have company guys, I guess you could call it, quote unquote, on the team. They felt like Mirotic wasn't really feeling it, so he just became one of those guys that was on the market for maybe a week or two, and that's when the Pelicans jumped in after the Boogie trade. We got to get better somehow. We have a roster here that can make a playoff run. If we add another piece, maybe that'll be good enough. And it turned out that Dell Demps hit the mark.
Yes, he did, but looking forward, is this team sort of patched together with Elmer's glue?
Now, are you talking about their history of injuries when you say that tongue in cheek?
That's not they're made of glass. It's just they had to rely on E'Twaun Moore a lot. Your boy Miller. You're like, what are they getting? Every Kentucky player? He came from Europe and he was serviceable. And
averaged 7 points, 3-point shooter, very good 3-point shooter.
But in order to sustain a team, you need young players to develop, and they trade their pick away every year. And you got playoff Rondo, but he's getting up there in age now, and he's not.
Yeah.
Who knows if even he'll be back? And then you have Sheik Diallo, who gets DNPs, and you bring in Emeka Okafor out of the dead to mentor him, and then I see you could trade your first round pick next year because you have Frank Jackson Frank Jackson. You have him who didn't play. His 2-foot injuries mysteriously I expect nothing different in New Orleans with just weird injuries that happen over and over.
Yes, this is a very common thing for us.
And so you could treat, there's your backup point guard that you didn't have.
I think one of the big hangups there, and I talked to a friend about this, and he was not going to the defense of Demps, but saying that the Solomon Hill signing was a situation where you need one of those taller wings that can at least be out there defensively against, the star wings. And Hill kind of fits that mold more than a lot of players out there, despite his lack of production. But I do think it is undeniable that about the $13 million a year or so that he averages is just, it's a very starch overpay. Would you agree?
It was the year of overpaying everybody, and he had one good month in Indiana. All of a sudden, we need to sign him for 4 years. It's what has he ever done, or how does he even fit in that team? And he doesn't. So
and it's an untradeable contract is the point I was making. With my friend, I was like, well, if it's a fair deal, then that means you can trade it at any point, right? I don't think so with Solomon Hill. I think we're pretty much. It's kind of like Eric Gordon before he signed with Houston when he was sort of dogging it. It's an untradeable deal because. It's an untradeable player because despite his talents, if he's not gonna show it, then no one's gonna want him. Unless you have a situation like Buddy Hield with the Kings where they see something nobody else does.
Well, they were just enamored with him, and You know,
Mm-hmm. Somebody that'd be enamored with Solomon Hill. They're like, oh, this is a guy that we need. Let's get him.
but that's the problem. Is it's kind of hard to do that for a player who's been in the league for 5-6 years, where you've sort of seen everything. He's too old to be a reclamation project, and he's his money is just there to match somebody else. But yeah, you had Heald, and then okay, you cashed it all in on Cousins, which we didn't fault them. They just they got Cousins at trade deadline, and then obviously they didn't make the playoffs because they didn't have enough time to gel together. And they plus they went all in too early, then everyone else went all in after them. But the question is this team sustainable with having no cap? And we discussed this with Washington throughout the season as well. There's another team. Just you have these. You have your big three who take up all your cap, and you have no money for your bench. And if one player gets injured, you have literally nobody to replace them.
I do have to come to the defense of one thing, and I can't believe I'm even doing this. The Drew Holiday re-signing at $25 or $27 million per with ascending salary, it looked horrible at the time. But let me tell you, Drew Holiday played like a stud this year. He actually probably earned what he made.
But with him and Davis and Cousins making all the money, how are you going to get a 2, which you desperately need? How are you going to get a 3, which you also desperately need? You can't just rely on Darius Miller and each one more to do anything.
It's sad that she said they desperately need a 3, and they paid all that money to Solomon Hill. But let me ask you this, because this is going to be the biggest question. It might even be the biggest question in all of free agency outside of LeBron. DeMarcus Cousins. I don't want to ask if they're a better team with or without him, because they are definitely a better team with DeMarcus Cousins. I am not even going to doubt that. What are the chances that he leaves?
The question is, what is his value? How much would you pay him? And I think he would probably go to a team that gives him more years.
Yeah, but where is his agent's baseline? Where it's like, I am not dipping below this number. I would probably say it's kind of somewhere around $22 million.
Oh, I don't think he'll make $22 million. Not coming off his injury.
I'll say he'll get 22 to 25 mil. I think someone will be willing to do it if it's not New Orleans themselves.
And that's probably like what the Lakers will do, or a team that's desperate is, oh, we'll give you 3 years, 22. Well, whereas New Orleans is sort of like, well, do we give you like a 1-year player option prove it deal for or
that's been floated out there too, that Cousins would be willing to play along with New Orleans, and New Orleans would be sort of in the same boat of like, we're not absolutely sure about this because we're going to be paying the tax for 1 year. We don't want to commit to multiple years, because if we do that, then we're Gail Benson, who's going to be taking over the team now that Tom Benson's passed away. Now you're in repeater tax, and that's the one thing you do not want to be unless you're a championship caliber team. And let's be honest with you, we saw them face to face against the Golden State Warriors. The Pelicans are not a championship contending team. They're not. They're a very, very good team, but they're not a championship contending team.
Well, here's a question: can they ever be a championship contender team?
If Drew Holiday plays that well and Boogie Cousins is healthy, maybe. But the problem is that they would have to bolster their bench, and because of problems like the Solomon Hill salary, if they can get Ajinka off the books with a medical waiver, and you can get one of those like minimum veteran type of moves that Cleveland always seems to benefit from, and Golden State has benefited from recent years, maybe you could pull it off. The other problem is you're not going to be able to afford Mirotić after 2019. That's the other problem. So next year is it. So maybe that's why a 1-year deal for Cousins makes sense.
Well, do they really want Mirotić if you have Cousins and Davis?
Well, they didn't. I don't think they ever played together, because I think Mirotić came in.
After, but
injury. Exactly. So, I think it would have worked because he's more of a finesse four anyway. Cousins shoots a lot of threes, but he's a center.
Okay, and then so again, the problem is, with expectations now, you've made the playoffs, and you made it to the second round. Now you have to take the next step, and I don't see logically how they can do that.
Because of the fact that outside of the Boogie re-signing, they can't get better because they're going to be so far into the tax.
Well, they have to re-sign Rondo too then, right?
I think they can get Rondo on just about the same money. I think they can actually get him for about $10 million, either $10 million per year for 3 years or another 1-year deal. I think Rondo enjoyed playing there. I don't think it was one of those things where he was trying to prove it so that he can get his last good contract of his career. I think he really enjoyed playing with New Orleans, and he fits so well with Anthony Davis that they should just run pick and roll with those two guys forever.
Well, I think he knows his days of big contracts are over. He's burnt too many bridges.
Mm-hmm. But how many teams are already smartened up to that and say, you worked well in New Orleans. We're not going to give you this deal because I think you fit better there anyway.
Because that's what teams think. You're better off where you are. They don't think you can equally duplicate that on.
Well, Adam, that's how lowballs happen because they think you're dumb enough to take that deal because you're not a great fit. And here's
the thing. You want Rondo for 3 years when he's already 32?
Well, for the Pelicans, if they can get that same production for at least another 2 years, I think they'll be willing to give him the third year. I mean, the assist thing with Rondo, it's sort of like built in him. It's like Kenny Lofton back in baseball. You know what you're getting. You're getting a solid player, but you're not going to get any more than that.
You're getting a solid player, but now he's 32, and then he's going to slow down, and he's not going to be the defender and the steal master that he was.
And then there's the intangibles, which you didn't bring up.
Playoff Rondo.
Well, playoff Rondo, being willing to get in the opponent's face, get into their psyche. I think that was a big part of the Portland series. That I think mentally Rondo got in their head a little bit. Would you agree?
Portland just did themselves in.
Yeah, but this isn't a Portland podcast. This is a New Orleans one. Offensively, team-wise, fantastic across the board. That's been Alvin Gentry's bread and butter. They can get a little bit better at shooting threes. I don't know if they can really go after a shooter. Etuan Moore really took a jump in that department, and we already talked about Darius Miller. I think they could probably get another one for small money. The problem is it would have to be super small money, like mini mid-level, because when you're a tax-paying team, you can only use half of the mid-level exception, which is going to be around $4 to $5 million.
So okay, look forward, Pelicans fans. You get to scour names you never heard of from Europe.
Well, I mean, look, Darius Miller worked out in that department, but the biggest question is, number one, like you said, what is DeMarcus Cousins' value? Number two, how much better of a team will they be with Cousins, Mirotic, Drew Holiday, and Anthony Davis? By the way, Anthony Davis, any chance he wins MVP?
No.
But he was a finalist.
So
he was deserving of that spot.
So were two other people.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that he was deserving that spot as a finalist.
Okay, so congratulations, he's a finalist.
You're sitting here and you're crapping all over Anthony Davis. He's like one of the 3 or 4 best players on planet Earth.
Okay, according to your logic, he was the 3rd best player this year. Doesn't mean he's the first.
Do you think LeBron was better than him?
This is not a Cleveland. This is a New Orleans episode.
Okay, but now we're finishing the New Orleans Pelicans podcast so that we can talk about those other teams now.
Collinsworth making his 18th appearance of the year. Another undrafted player who's appeared for Dallas this year. That basket by Dirk passes Eldon Hayes for 8th in NBA history in made shots, number 10,977.
All right, Adam, I know things are always bigger in Dallas, but the only thing that was bigger in Dallas for the Mavericks this year was their loss count. They were at 24-58, so you got to help me out here. I've been sort of all Mavericked out for the last couple of years. I don't really have much to say there. They did get Dennis Smith Jr., and he showed some signs as a rookie, but when that's like your greatest hope so far, things aren't looking up.
To be fair, he was quite good for them at times. He's better option than Frankie Nicotine or
Frank Ntilikina.
The only problem with Dallas is just their roster composition. They you can say, oh well, they're tanking. Well, yeah, but if you're relying on Seth Curry to essentially be your man,
mm-hmm.
that's just not. That's not good if he's already penciled in as your starting 2 guy, and then it's just a sad way to sort of let Dirk go. But they tried. They got lucky with Nerlens agent being.
Well, it was 2 agents because he fired one and then hired the other and took the qualifying offer, and he somehow did not even live up to the qualifying offer. Not only by being unhappy with the number of minutes he was being played, but getting hurt at the same time.
Well, it could be one of those things. Would he have been better if he got the money and happy and content? Well, we'll never know. But it's just, yeah, if you're okay, so they got lucky; they didn't have to pay him a lot. But again, if you're relying on Max Kleber to bail you out, and Yogi Ferrell still, hey, it's good. He's still,
And don't you forgot about Soleil Medjiri? Majiri? Is it Majiri? I think. That was the other big, along with Kleber, that they had to rely on a lot for the rebounding, which they were like 27th in the league at.
So yeah, the problem is there's just two halves of two teams. You have Harrison Barnes, who you gave a max deal to, which I'm not understanding it. Why are you giving him money and sort of wasting his prime? Like, you're wasting literally all 4 of his years there.
You know how I feel about Barnes? I feel the same way that I always did about Mitch Richmond when he was with the Kings. Like, is he a good player? For sure he's a good player. Like, he's, like he averaged 20 points a game like every year for like 6 or 7 years with the Kings and the Wizards. I feel the same way about Barnes. Like, he averaged 18.9 points per game. I think last year he averaged about 19 or 20, had his best individual season. This year it felt like the numbers were the same. Like, he just kind of like is in a stasis mode as the top guy on a bad team. But if he was ever put on another team, he would probably immediately sink.
Yeah, and that's why he was the 5th option in Golden State. But why are you giving him this money? Why are you still keeping Wesley Matthews and his bloated contract around when you're not?
They got one more year on the Wesley Matthews deal.
Yeah, which he opted into and was quick to do so.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just one of the things. Like, what are you doing? Like, you're signing people and then just sort of getting, I don't pick one, either tank or get expensive people, but you're just again, just relying on Max Kleber. Like, where did he come from? It was just like Tice in Boston. It's like, there's this weird German guy. We don't know who he is. And
I mean, they always feel like that they sort of champion finding like those players that nobody else saw. I guess that's sort of the infatuation with guys like Yogi Ferrell and Max Kleber, and another guy that they sort of kind of fell in love with, if you remember at the end, was Jonathan Motley, who's from
Baylor.
Yeah, from Baylor. Dorian Finney-Smith. He's got a team option at $1.5 million. I would have to think they're going to keep him, even though he only played about 21 games. Then you had so many guys that they just threw out there like spaghetti to the wall. Josh McRoberts only played 2 games. Antonis Cleveland, Jeff Withy, Gian Clavel, Kyle Collinsworth, Jameel Warney. I mean, like, just guys. Aaron Harrison, not even the good Harrison. Like, they just threw like anything out there just to see if they could survive. I mean, I know that Cuban in the middle of the year took a lot of flack from the league office there was 2 reasons. The first one was that he had been quoted in an interview saying that they were openly tanking. And then the other one was when all that Me Too stuff started up, that there was accusations of trouble in the workplace. Was it called sexual misconduct or just general misconduct?
Just general.
Just boys being boys type of thing.
Just general erections and
general erections, huh?
No, what was it? What were they? Not the oddities, misfits. Yeah,
the misfits in action. I can't believe you are name dropping that. Oh yeah, they may have had some. I can't even say it. Anyway, yeah, a little bit of trouble. It seemed like there was more turmoil inside the actual organization than there was on the basketball team, because the basketball team was just so plain. I felt almost bad for Rick Carlisle, because I knew that he could not turn this around. I think Carlisle knew that too, but it's not like Carlisle's like leaving to go to like Toronto and get the hell out of there. Like, he's in for the long haul with the Mavericks. He's always had a good relationship with Mark Cuban and Donnie Nelson. Like, I don't think that's ever going to change.
But the question is, Cuban has been shown he can spend when he wants to. So, are they a draft pick away and a max deal to put themselves back in? Like, let's say they get Mo Bamba and then go out and sign, let's say J.J. Redick or something. Get a 2-guard who could just shoot lights out.
So your big signing is J.J. Redick.
Well, they're not going to get Paul George. They're not going to get.
But that's the problem. That's like Mark's. That's been his Moby Dick. Like, Mark Cuban's been chasing that forever, and he struck out every time. Remember when he tried to get Darren Williams once upon a time, tried to get Dwight Howard, thought he had DeAndre Jordan, and he infamously skipped out. Then he finally reached to the point where it's like, okay, I'll give max money to Harrison Barnes, and he actually wound up taking it. So, do you think he'll do it again? Do you think he'll overreach to try to get one of these top free agents that you're talking about, like a JJ Redick?
I'm saying it's possible. You disagree?
I just don't see it. I'll say this. Is he going to go after a Trevor Ariza or an Avery Bradley or say for example he tries to sign Marcus Smart to $17 million a year on an offer sheet. Maybe it's not a great fit, but I can see Dallas reaching like that.
But is it not? How is it not a great fit when you have Dennis Smith and you have this number 5 pick, and then a young player like a Harrison Barnes?
Well, I like the Bamba thing because they do need. I mean, if we're just gonna hit right to the draft, they definitely need a big man. They need a good big man in the worst way humanly possible. So I think Bamba would be at 5 would be perfect. It's so perfect I don't even think it's gonna happen. But yeah, I mean, you were gonna say something?
I was like, well then, and then that's what we said. Dennis Smith will fall to him, and he did, and by accounts, he was the team was bad.
He had good months. He had a good November, and then he had a bad January, and then he sort of bounced back at the end. Incredible athlete. Can you believe he tore his ACL in high school? When you watch him, you're like, God, if he tore his ACL, I want to see how he was jumping before that.
Yeah, he's bad. But, again, Dwight Powell, he seems to be the cornerstone for that team. And then it's just, there's no depth. There's no...
There's zero depth.
There's zero depth, and you trade your picks away every year. Remember when they traded down twice 3 years ago and got Shane Larkin just because he was $3 million cheaper, and then cut him after a year?
Yeah, that was 2013. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's because they were just. That's when they were just trying to hold on to whatever cap space they had. So they were punting on all their draft picks because they thought that they could just find decent undrafted free agents. And
that's just, you can't keep
doing that.
They have nobody. They got Nowitzki. He's this probably
next year's the farewell tour. It's the Kobe tour. But here's the thing with Dirk. I mean, he's tremendously respected. He's the best European based player in NBA history. He might be the best European player ever. Period.
But the thing is, they only bring it back 7 people next year, 7 or 8.
Yeah, I mean, they have a lot of room to build up the rest.
You think you're going to bring back Yogi Ferrell, and probably not.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it depends. I don't know what his free agency situation is. I think he's unrestricted. Or if it might be one of those, they might have early bird rights type of thing where they can match it if they want to.
But he's not going to be, he's not going to get worth a ton of money. The thing is, they have cap space to use around on a place where team. They haven't been buyers. This is the one team that hasn't been a dumping ground for your picks.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those would you be willing to take a Luol Deng if you'll take an Ingram off their hands or?
Well, the other thing is too that they have such a good coach in Carlisle that there's this assumption that if you did take a quote unquote bad contract, like a Luol Deng, or say a Solomon, we talked about him in another show, a Solomon Hill, that Carlisle can turn that around and make lemonade out of a lemon, Now you don't want to overreach and do that too many times because now you're going to strike out with for example they did this year where they just tried so many journeymen thinking that Carlisle could find the magic and the magic wasn't there.
They weren't even trying journeymen; they're just getting D-League pick of the week type things, and I don't want to say got frustrating towards the end. It's just
it was hopeless.
It's just there's not much you could do when your team has no talent, no young prospects to look forward to, and you're just there essentially.
Now in terms of the team stats, defensively they were better than you would expect. The problem is in the front court, they just need so much help. Not a lot of team speed in their backcourt. That doesn't help when you have like 5'10" point guards like JJ Barea and Yogi Ferrell. They didn't turn the ball over a lot. They played very slowly, and they're not a very experienced team because, like I said, if you're taking a lot of journeyman two-way contract G League type players, you're not getting veterans. So you're not bringing leadership in to show them how to do things. And then when Nowitzki leaves after next year and retires, then you're really now you're really pushing. Now you're looking at a complete and total rebuild behind Dennis Smith Jr.
Which, is that a bad thing?
No, it's not a bad thing. I mean, it's just eventual is what I'm trying to say.
So basically we're saying this year is their time to step up and start.
Here's the funny part. They haven't even started the rebuild yet. Like, they're tanking, and they haven't even started the rebuild. You have to get rid of Nowitzki. You have to either trade Matthews. If you really want to just hard-ass rebuild, you got to trade Barnes or Matthews. You have to either dump Nowitzki and just do away with this, like, retirement tour bullshit, and you got to find another good guard.
Well, there's nothing wrong with a retirement tour if he's making $5 million.
Yeah, but we saw this with Kobe with the Lakers. Like,
but Kobe,
it stunts the growth of the team because you're sort of hanging on this. Oh yeah, let's do it. Let's do this one for Dirk, and that's fine. Like you have to appreciate the work he put in for Dallas. He'll be the greatest Maverick who ever played. But God, are you going to just sacrifice another tanktastic season just so that you can celebrate Dirk's career?
There's nothing wrong with that. Again, if he's making $5 million. And he's content being a 20-minute role player off the bench.
Which I think he will. You know.
And there's nothing. Kobe's like, no, I'm the star. I want $40 million. I want everything. I'm going to take all the shots. Whereas Dirk's just like, look, I will teach these young guys what I can. You watch Harrison Barnes, like, okay, he's picking something up. He's learning. He's refining his game just a little bit. Nerlens was just
Nerlens was in a tailspin, not only from a health standpoint and a production standpoint, but from a team chemistry standpoint. I mean, it all came up snake eyes for Noel.
And if they were ready to give him, what was it, 60 or 70 million, and
that's what it was. It was there. It was like a 5-year, $70 million contract, and he declined it.
Oh, I want a max deal. Okay, no deal for you. Same thing with Caldwell Pope in Detroit. Was just, I'm worth it. Oh, see ya.
Which is, what's funny, we'll get to Detroit, but they somehow made the smart move and still made the dumbest move in the entire NBA.
I guess we'll see Nerlens and Caldwell Pope in Brooklyn next year, I guess, as reclamation projects. But I'm not going to say this. It's not all doom and gloom for Dallas. I think this is the darkest days we've seen from them because they're just scraping the bottom. They're not openly tanking. They're just. I think they're ready to be in position to start forming a plan.
So you're saying that Mark Cuban was wrong in his own assessment of his team?
What did he thought they were good?
He thought they were openly tanking.
Oh, they were openly tanking last year to get Dennis Smith because they were doing too good, and this year they're just terrible, and they're openly tanking because. Well, it's kind of hard to tank when you have Atlanta, Brooklyn, Charlotte, Orlando, Phoenix, Sacramento.
So we're looking draft here, kind of as a priority. You got to go with a big man here, right?
No, you have to go with somebody who's going to be your star. You need your 1A to your Dennis Smith's 1.
Yeah, but if a guy like Doncic is gone and a guy like Michael Porter Jr. is gone, Marvin Bagley is gone, then. You got to just find a good big to just help out your rebounding.
Well, they need to hit a home run.
That's true.
You need a big.
If Bamba's the guy, Bamba's got to be really, really good.
Yeah, you can't just be like, oh, well, we'll get Wendell Carter.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just be like, we'll get the next big man because we need one. They need somebody to look, because if they waste this pick, they're just another year behind. Because, again, not to compare them to Philly, Philly's process was Nerlens Noel and Jolie Okafor in years 1 and 3. And you see how it set them back even further?
Yes.
If you hit on your picks, it's a lot easier. And they hit on Dennis Smith last year, and they really need to hit again this year.
They also have another pick down in the bottom of the second round at 54, along with number 34. I don't know what they can really do with that to maneuver. Maybe they can, but really this is sort of
with 7 or 8 people on the roster, they need those two bodies. One will probably be a two-way contract, and 34 should be able to contribute for you.
Yeah, and 54, Lord knows. Like, maybe they can turn that into, like, a future
It'll
first.
be a Euro. It'll be a Euro stash.
Or somebody who really liked somebody at the end of the second that they feel like was, like, dropping down, and they get, like, a future first. You know, Boston pulled that off with Memphis. You know, I mean, that's another thing with Dallas. I think they really just need to start thinking about just stockpiling draft picks.
Well,
that's the new thing.
You need to start with one pick, which they have problems doing. But they need to start with the draft. That's what they need to do.
Yep, D is for draft. And that's going to be doing it for this episode. I'm glad for everybody listening to it. Still got a little bit left to go. Adam, do you have anything for us before we get out of Dodge?
Hey, thanks for listening to this part. Check out the other parts. They're all equally as good.
On behalf of Adam Murray, this is Andrew Riche. We'll see you again.